Welcome to Emotional Intelligence Simplified. This is a weekly podcast focused on demystifying and discussing what emotional intelligence is. Welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence Simplified. I'm your host, Angela Mwehaki. And today we have with us Newton Siele, who is a coach, a mentor, and a father. Newton is very passionate about beginning with the end in mind. Beginning with the end in mind. And this is so as to answer that question. What's your why? Why are you here? Welcome, Newton. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Should I just call you Muhaki? Right? I
Filanga
think
free.
that is easier.
It is.
It's a pleasure to be here, really, and thank you so much for the great introduction. Newton is my name. Um, as you've said, passionate father. Um,
Mentor
I work
coach.
like everybody else. Yes, mentor, coach. And I really believe that life is so short that it has to have a purpose.
I like that because how did you, I've just like, have I ever thought about beginning with the end? And I was like, whoops.
That's a very good question, actually, Muhaki. As you know, I come from a medical background, right?
Yes.
And I sell medicines for a living. So I think I always tell my colleagues we work with, there is no greater test of mortality than when you actually are involved in saving, for example, people's lives.
Mm,
If you look at those data, I think as of last year, they were saying that the life expectancy of a Kenyan,
right.
wananchi wa kawaida,
Higher.
is 67.7 years.
I'm
Hapo ndo
counting down.
tunasemanga
Sasa now
hapo
I'm
ndo
starting to
tunasemanga
look back.
pause kwanza.
Pause.
Um,
Najiuliza, how old am I?
exactly.
How much more
And
time do I
if
have
the life
left?
expectancy is 67, and if you're like me, towards approaching your 50s, and you realize, oh my God, I have 17 years. But it's not just 17. Haki, think of it in terms of days.
Or then they become a few more.
They become like 6,000 days.
Okay.
Yeah. So it becomes so important for you to think that, have I been able to accomplish what I wanted, or am I going to be in that category of people that are going to regret? I wish I could. I wish
Shoulda,
I
woulda,
would.
coulda, yeah.
Yes. That's why I think I honestly believe that just that mindset of looking at life in terms of days, it's scary.
It's scary, but I think it's a good one.
It's a good wake up. Yes.
So when we're done with this, I'm going to calculate how many days I have left.
Yeah, short
Ideally.
of putting like maybe it's not so good because we're Africans. We don't put a countdown, but the point is that it should always ring this
That,
bell.
yeah, this
It
is
should
not
always ring
permanent.
this bell that mortality is something that everybody gets to face,
Yeah.
and sometimes I think we underestimate, or we just assume that it's just not there.
Yeah, or because we're so scared, we refuse to think about it.
Absolutely.
We avoid it. And I don't know how that helps us.
Absolutely.
So, of course, like we said, today we're going to look at, in view of this, how do we unlock career goals, through continuous learning? So let's start with mindset. These days, mindset, everybody talks about having the right mindset. When you talk about mindset, what does it mean to you?
Mindset, let me use a word that I tend to borrow from my mentors. It's a software that you operate in.
Uh-huh.
Right? It's your belief system. And your belief system determines your attitudes. It determines how you respond, not react.
That's a
respond.
keyword, respond.
Respond to things.
Mhm.
And I think what we tend to see a lot is that people are oblivious of the fact that they have the wrong software. How do you know that somebody has a wrong software? I mean, half the time they're reactive. Half the time they're so angry. Half the time they are complaining.
Mm,
Half the time they have excuses why things are not moving.
mhm.
And so, it sort of puts this question marks that, hey, Apo Kidogo, maybe you need to remove that disc. I mean that generation, right? Already, I was seeing that the person who's helping us at the studio is
Siwaka,
definitely
our tech guy.
atuseme
Gen
your generation.
Ni ule,
Sisi
ni
tulikuwa
wale.
tunafanyanga zile floppy discs.
Floppy disks, yes.
Ulikuwa unatoa.
Eh.
So sometimes you feel like telling somebody, hey, I think that this that you're using, it lazima u upgrade.
Mhm.
And upgrading in the context of having the right mindset. And for me, it boils down to what we were saying also earlier. When you have the right mindset, you have less stress. When you have the right mindset, you tend to approach life from a different perspective. But I'm also convinced that when you have the right mindset, then you're not so worried of being on the side of people that will regret. Maze,
If
sikufanya
only,
hii.
if I, yeah.
Yeah, that's the most important point. So I think most people tend to assume, or they don't reflect, am I really using the right operating system?
So
Am I
looking at
learning to
that,
me saizi? It's
mm,
taking me in the wrong direction.
mm.
Yeah.
So looking at that OS, what is the right kind of mindset to be able to really grow in your career and to be able to move on?
That's a good question, Mihaki. But I also prefer to look at it from the perspective of which mindset don't we want to
Okay,
have,
let's
right?
go that way.
And that one, the term that we use a lot is fixed, right? Fixed mindset.
Fixed. Okay.
And people say that when you have a fixed mindset, it's like things are cast in stone.
Mm-hmm.
People with a fixed mindset believe that, hey, me, I was born in this. This is where I'm supposed to be. People with a fixed mindset believe that, why should I try? And I don't think I'll be able to make it. People with a fixed mindset, they are not looking at the effort. They're more interested in the end result. Yet we know that actually the end result is really what comes based on the process
It's the journey
that you've
that
gone
counts.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to be on the wrong side in terms of a mindset that doesn't take you anywhere, then all you need to do is just adopt a fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that fixed mindset is like those things that are like shackles that hold you down.
Right.
You are not able to move,
Mm.
whether it's in relationships, whether it's at work, and especially at work.
Mhm.
One of the things I think this week I was training in my leadership masterclass, incidentally, was actually mindset, right? And I was speaking to young healthcare providers. I mean, somebody that's graduated with medicine or pharmacy, and here you are in a real life, where the
Situation,
rubber
yeah.
meets the road, and you realize that, hey, wait a minute, all this masomo, these degrees that I have are not going to get me anywhere if I don't have the right software.
Mhm.
And that right software means that if you're the kind of person who has a fixed mindset, you're not even talking about skills that are transferable that you have. So today, if you come in for an interview
Right.
and you tell me that, oh yeah, but I have these academic credentials, I'm like, yeah, so do the 10 other people outside the door, right?
Why are you unique?
Why are you unique?
Mhm.
And that's where now it begins sort of separate, and you see people with different mindsets. So those that have the correct operating system, aka growth mindset, for example,
Growth
their
mindset.
perspective is different.
Mhm.
You see somebody telling you, you know what, apart from what I have actually graduated in, I've been able to teach myself this. I can be able to do this. And it was interesting because if you look 5 years ago, we were
Right.
telling people that in 2020, we were telling them that in 5 years, the number one skill that employers will be looking for is analytical thinking and problem solving. That was in
Right.
2020.
Yeah.
In 5 years,
Mhm.
where are we now?
Now in
5 years.
2025, 5 years
That 5 years
later.
is here now.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that people are looking for people with problem solving skills and analytical thinking, then that's where we are.
Mm.
We've arrived,
It's
isn't
happened.
it?
It's now.
It is.
Yeah.
And so I think a growth mindset is just, it's much more than what you need to be able to have excellent relationships. It's also what you need to be able to transcend or to leapfrog your career, as we know your Kiingereza Kingumu. If you're going to leapfrog your career, I don't see how you can do it without a growth mindset. The other thing about people with a fixed mindset, and this Sunday that just passed, I had the very rare opportunity of attending one of my mentors' live session. Robin Sharma was in town. Did you know
Oh
that?
wow, I missed. I love Robin Sharma.
Okay.
Hey, I'm going to talk to you, Kando.
Robin Sharma was in town.
Right.
And one of the things that he was saying, and I really love this, is that people must begin to shift from this culture of, he called it CBE to APR.
Okay.
People who are in CBE,
Mm-hmm.
they love complaining,
Mm-hmm.
they love blaming,
Mm-hmm.
and they love giving excuses.
Complaining, blaming, excusing.
And
CBE.
that is a fixed mindset, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people who begin to adopt an APR approach in their life, it's absolute personal responsibility. For me, it's a growth mindset,
Perfect.
or beginning with the end in mind, right? And I see that as being very important because in today's environment, I mean, everybody feels like the government, tusimanga imekufinyilia.
What more can you do? Why are you
It's like,
restricting
yeah,
yourself?
in the Kenyan slang language, we say that wamekupigangeta. You feel like your oxygen levels have really dropped, and yet to be able to survive, you can't complain because complaining doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
You need to look at alternatives, and that's what growth mindset does.
Mm-hmm.
You realize, oh, I made a mistake, maze. Apple, I could have done better.
Yeah.
That's a growth mindset. You look at possibilities, that's a growth mindset.
Possibilities.
You welcome criticism, that's a growth mindset.
You're curious.
You embrace feedback, whether negative or positive, that's a growth mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are hard.
Yes.
All of them, nothing is easy. So now let's look at career growth. So looking at like now when we talk about feedback, so that I can think I need to grow. It's a very tricky thing. The art of receiving feedback is a very big challenge. How do we look at it? What's the best way? Because sometimes you may not know. And you've said fixed, of course, you think I know it all and I've ticked the boxes. I needed to do a master's. I have done a master's. But we're saying with a growth mindset, you're looking at possibilities, you're seeing. So how do we get into that next level of growth?
I
Like
think,
when you're talking to when you're giving examples to the people you coach and mentor.
yeah, I think one of the most important things that we would probably start with is just a self-reflection, right?
Okay.
It was interesting because I read a book once, and we did actually in our book club. The book was 16 Reasons Why People Fail. 16, I remember that.
Mhm.
And out of the 16 reasons, one is people who don't take time to reflect.
Don't
And
take time to reflect.
reflecting on yourself also means that you become self-aware. I mean, and that self-awareness allows you to know that where are my blind spots,
Yes.
right? Those who, as I said, are experts call this the Johara window. Those four pins that you look out and see. Is there something that is known to myself but unknown to others,
Yeah.
or known to others but
Not
unknown
known
to
to
me?
me.
And I think that self-reflection is very important if you think about it from a career growth perspective. Of course, it begins by being proactive, aka growth mindset,
Mm,
to say I want to get feedback.
yeah.
And you can do a 360-degree feedback. I
Mhm.
remember the first time I did a 360-degree feedback. I mean, the way it slapped me on my face.
So let's break it down for those who are wondering what is a 360
So
feedback.
a 360-degree feedback is where you actually get to be given feedback, not just by people that report to you,
Right.
people that you
On the
report
same
to,
level with
people on
you.
the same level with
Mm,
you, people that not necessarily, as I said, reporting to you. And the beauty about 360 feedback is that, as it is, it's a 360 degrees. It's people who may not necessarily be interacting with you, but they have this perception that they see about you,
mhm.
and sort of it keeps you in check. And so
Right.
for me, anybody that really wants to be able to sharpen themselves must be consistently asking for feedback.
Mhm.
And even if you don't have 360, nowadays it's available. You can be able to get it in so many places. At least you can ask the person you are with, please tell me how am I performing? What do I do?
Mm,
Is there something that about me that you notice? Are there certain mannerisms that you pay
mhm,
attention to?
mm.
So those things are important. And for most people, I think when we were growing up, we used to be told that a career trajectory is dependent on what your plan is, your roadmap.
Yeah.
And remember, I was telling you about beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah. Think
So,
about
yeah,
if you want to be a surgeon, you need to know from school what subjects you're going to study.
absolutely. Or
Right.
even when you start at the job place, you know that this is where I am, but this is where I need to go.
Yeah.
I want to go into sales. I want to go into product management. I want to go to the C-suite. I want to get into HR, whatever it is. But the real question is, what are you then doing now
To get there.
that is tangible?
Right.
We call it concrete actions.
Mhm.
There must be concrete actions. Because a lot of people also are dreamers.
Lots of us are dreamers.
Yes.
We hope somehow our dreams will come to reality.
And,
Because you're told if you can dream it, you can achieve it.
or fake it until you make it
You
right.
know?
But unfortunately, we end up often dying with these dreams, right? And it's sad that you sort of end up getting buried with so many things that could never get fulfilled. And I like what somebody told me once, that when you're dead, you're dead.
True. There's no coming back.
Yes, completely.
It's done.
Yeah, it's
Curtains
done.
down.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know the curtain down.
It's
Maybe even
whatever it
the whole
is.
theater is shut for that matter.
Maybe it's ready for the next act.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now let's look at, okay, so I like how we've brought in the issue of self-awareness. So how do we use that to be able to identify skills that we need to learn or improve?
It's a very good point. I see what people now insist on is what we call transferable skills. And transferable is in the context that what is that one thing that you have that when you come with today
Mhm.
into my organization, you can be able to impact my organization and therefore increase the momentum of the organization, right?
It's a good
So
one.
transferable. Because
Mhm.
remember, I told you that if you're just coming with your academic credentials, I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA, so does everybody else.
Everybody else has the same
But
thing.
if we look at what we were saying earlier, where I'm saying, but beyond just being a CPAK, by the way, I'm quite analytical in the way I look at things.
Mm,
And I can be able to give you this profile of what I've been able to. Then that to me is an exciting person, because I say, okay, you're going to be in charge of our internal audit, but I need you to really look at the numbers and help us where we feel like there are red flags early enough to change.
And gaps,
Now,
what we need to
that makes a
adjust.
difference,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So
And
I'm
so
good
for
at, as we said, analytical thinking, problem solving. You're
yes,
good at assessing things from a certain perspective.
yes,
Right.
or pulling people together.
Mhm.
So I think when you're self-aware about the transferable skills that you have that are advantageous, you then say, how do I use them to grow in that career path that I want to pursue? And I think it's really important. For me, people who are proactive will be in an organization and sit with HR and say, by the way, this is what I want to be in 3 years.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there something that is available in the organization? Okay. Can I do something on my own to be able to improve? Yes. Because I'll give you an example. As I said, I've been in sales.
Right.
And one of the things about sales is that you have to be an excellent communicator. It's no two way about it.
No.
You can't even sell if you can't even introduce yourself.
True.
You know, I've come and say, Muihaki, my name is Nitron. Do you have 2 minutes? You know,
Mm.
and I need to be confident and I need to be ready. Sometimes you'll be telling me,
Not right now.
I don't have, I'm busy.
Yeah.
I need to be persistent, for example. So knowing that, hey, wait a minute, I need to improve on my communication skills. What do I need to do? But remember, if you also want to be honest with yourself, you must get the feedback, which is what you were asking earlier. So once you know that these are the 3 areas that I need to build or sharpen, then what do I need to do?
Mhm.
What is available in terms of where I work? What do I need to put on my own? I like what they say in Kiswahili that mtakacha mvunguni
Sharti.
bas.
Mhm.
Right. So
Sharti
I
ainame.
think that's a lot of the time people tend to assume that the work is done for me. I just need to be there, and I'll be able to grow, and which
Mhm.
is scary, right? I mean, I think 2023 is when they did a survey and they said that 83% of the Kenyans are what they call quiet quitters. You've heard of that term, quiet quitters?
Quiet quitters. Tell us about
Quiet
that.
quitters.
So they're there, but they're not there.
They call them sit warm. They only warm the seat in the office.
So they physically they're there, but
They're there
they left it.
completely, right? Which is
83%.
scary. 83%. So it means that out of 100 people, if you think about
Yeah,
it.
83 people are just there because they have to be
Yes,
there.
they're just waiting for that so they can be able to get their paycheck and be able to move on. I think the important thing, and I keep telling people that if you're just there
Mhm.
for the sake of it's not just that you're also wasting your own time. Remember, we said time
I
is
think that's
going,
the
yeah?
part we need to remind them. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you're counting down
it's
those
also your
6,000
time.
days,
Don't think
those
about
are
your
your
employer.
days wasted.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of people that coast through life. Watu kwa bus, kazi yao ni kuketi na kwenda tu.
Wanajaza tu, ni
Kujua,
wale wa
yeah.
kujaza.
And that's scary. So you cannot grow your career if you're not, I mean, the
If you
keyword
don't
here
have
is
a plan,
proactive.
yeah.
Yes.
You're not seeing the end.
Mm,
Now it's clicking. All the cogs are clicking into place.
And time is a factor here, isn't it?
Right, it is.
It is, yeah.
And
Because you don't have the same strength and capability at the age of 40 than you did when you're 30.
absolutely.
Or
our
Gen
our
Z.
guy, Siwaka.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is the ultimate thing. And so sometimes people get this Damascus moment, and it, scaringly, maybe too late. I keep telling people that in my line of work, one of the things that we're required to tell individuals is that a year before they retire, you tell them HR is supposed to write.
Oh yes, I mean a place where I saw actually somebody was given a letter last week. So I had no idea it even happens. So she's from the coast, like, imefika. So I'm like, nini imefika? Ile barua ya kuambia waondoka. I was like, they do?
They
Yeah,
give you
until now
1
you're
year.
told you have 1 year.
1
So
year.
anza kujipanga. They're getting you
Yes.
ready mentally.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, if that's what is going to jolt you to realize, and somebody was saying, why do you think a lot of people post-retirement quickly get into depression? Because you're like, oh, I've not built a house, or I've not done this,
I
I've
don't
not
know what
done
I'm going to
this, I don't
do.
have this.
Yeah.
Now you get all confused. So I think that's the same way we treat our careers. And for me, apart from the fact that you are just limited in terms of time, the other generation is knocking.
Yeah, they're literally on our necks. And now we have things called
In
AI.
fact, I don't even
Also,
think.
making certain work irrelevant.
Exactly.
It can be automated. It can be done.
I don't even think that the Gen Zs are. I think they are banging at the door, like,
They're
please,
already here. They've been telling us,
exit.
sit down. We can do this.
Exit. You need to move. And that's life, right? I think there's nothing as sobering as knowing that the way in which God put us on this planet, every time there's a new birth.
Yeah, this transition happening.
Yes.
Changes is happening.
Every time there's a new birth, it's also a reminder that it's time for somebody else to exit. And so that's a cycle of
That's
life.
very grim, but it's true.
Yes,
It's
that's
true.
a cycle of
It's
life.
true.
And we forget that we are at that point where we are also approaching, like everybody else,
The end.
that we also need to be able to exit because others are being born. Yeah.
It's true. And I like what you said that sometimes with careers, we sit and think it's done. So you said, I have to be able to introspect to see that. And I like how you kept saying, can I learn outside? Don't wait for Jobo to come and tell you.
Be proactive.
Yeah. So you
Be
need to keep
proactive.
looking into yourself.
Hence the software, isn't it?
Yes. So
Yeah.
it is curiosity, open mind. You're aware of what is happening around you. And you're continuously being self aware of how do I need to adjust to the changing times.
Absolutely. Short of, I think, you know, the way we talk about red flags, but maybe in our lives we should really take that seriously. Like, I mean, we talk about red flags in relationships, red flags in what. I mean, you should have a red flag in life that just reminds you. I saw in the studio here they say, you know, when they say 5, 4, 3, 2,
When they count you
start.
down, yeah.
Yeah.
We should do
So
that with ourselves.
yeah. You should also have a countdown on life.
And
But that's the reality.
you've shaken me up. I'm like, I have to go home and start taking so many other things and asking what next. So how do we look for these opportunities? Because sometimes it's not in your face. You know, with certain careers, it's guaranteed. If you want to be the best accountant, you know what you have to do, you know, or sales or marketing. But some of these other careers, how do you grow? You know, with medicine, okay, not the doctors that they do the CLE, the lawyers, the who, but some of these others, or sometimes you discover a new path. Like how you said, you go to HR and I'm like, I have an interest in this. How
Mm,
can I grow? So
mm.
how do we open and seek those opportunities actively?
But it's, you know, Muhaki, it's what we were saying about the why, right? Because if you
Yeah.
think about it also, there's a book by a gentleman known as Simon Sinek, one of my very good mentors,
Ah, yeah, I
and
love
it's called
Simon
Finding
Sinek.
Your Why, right?
Yes.
And Simon Sinek says we're very clear about what we do and how we do it. So if you're an accountant, you know what you do every day. You know how you do it. The real question is why. And when you find what your why is and what your purpose is, you begin to align your life to that why and purpose. And you know, I like the examples he gives. It's very real for us. For me,
Mhm.
the two that really stand out is Nelson Mandela
Yes.
and Martin Luther King.
Hmm.
But Nelson Mandela wasn't just in Robben Island for about 18 years in incarceration. I mean, he was in a cell that was so small without a single mattress. And literally, I remember that story being told of how they had to chip on limestone, not because the limestone was going to be used for something else, just to
Mark
make sure to your marking time,
the
you know,
day. It's a day
and the
dance.
dust is going to your eyes. And so for 18 years, if you're doing that, and then you get out of a prison, and you somehow are able to just transition and take the responsibility of a country with you and sort of midwife them into a democracy, that's purpose.
And it's huge. Because
That's
if you think
purpose.
about even recovering
Yeah.
from the isolation and the things you've left out, and to be able to even just draw back within yourself to move on,
That's
that takes a lot
purpose.
of determination
That's
and
purpose.
purpose.
And that is being very clear about your why. So I think the biggest challenge we have with maybe a lot of the people is that they're disconnected in terms of what their why is really. And when you have that even within the organization in itself, as I said, you're putting in place concrete actions. You're making sure that you have the right mindset that will help you. Because you can have a why, but you don't even have the mindset. How do you have, I mean, it's like having a car with no wheels, right?
But you know,
It's those things that are going to get you moving in that direction.
you're bringing in something that's very important. And you mentioned that a lot of us sometimes are just fillers. We glide through life. We go through the
To go back
motions.
sit.
You wake up, you were a teenager,
Eh,
okay, then you became an adult.
make a
Adults get married,
earphones.
they have
Yes.
children, but they've never thought about their why. So how do we provoke people? How do you get to identify your why? Because like now, because the challenge we've had with our system is sometimes it's Gava who decided the courses we did because of our marks. Not many were able to follow what they dreamt of doing. So if you're those people who had to go through the motions, how do we get you to provoke yourself to think about your why? Because it gets as we get older, we do start thinking about the why.
No, absolutely. And you know, for me,
You
I
know,
always,
like when you hit 40 and above, you start thinking, what's my legacy?
yeah, yeah.
But do we have to wait
There's,
until
you
40?
start saying there's this calling.
Yeah. So how do we start
Um,
redefining ourselves?
I think that, you know, to go back to the point that we started with, you really begin with the end in mind. I don't see
Yeah.
how you can avoid it. And beginning with the end in mind is asking yourself, if today was to be my funeral, right? And somebody was reading my eulogy, what would I want to be remembered?
Okay.
And I like again what Simon Sinek says. He says that there are two things that your wife must be able to answer.
Mhm.
One is your contribution to the society, and number
Yes.
two is the impact you want to leave. And so you, whatever your why statement is, you always ask yourself, is it clear about what my contribution is? Is it clear about what my impact is going to be? My why, for example, is in coaching people on leadership so that they can be able to have better lives. And
Mhm.
every day I wake up, even in my job, whether I'm working with healthcare providers, I'm working with my colleagues at work, the people that I get to coach or mentor, that's what I ask myself, that will they look back and say, by the way, because I was able to get this,
I
I
met this
became
guy
better.
and this is what he taught
Yes.
me.
And I believe that's what we're also doing here. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's important. Living a life that is filled with why allows you to have fulfillment. And I was telling you, the second person that inspires me was uh, Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Because even just like the script that Nelson Mandela had, he lived in times when, the segregation of blacks in the US was at its height, right? I mean, it actually cost him his life,
True.
literally. Yet he knew what he wanted to do. He knew why he existed and why he needed to be able to offer that hope and the message that, by the way, whites and blacks can actually live. That speech that he did
I have a dream.
of I Have a Dream
Yeah.
really defines a person who knows what their why is.
Mm.
If you're waking up at night and asked, would you say, by the way, I know what my why is? Because some people, they flip flop.
That's a
And
good
I'm
question. Do
reminding
you
you,
know what your why is?
yes. And the question is actually, yeah, do you have it? Do you have it written somewhere? Are you able to tell somebody this is my why? Are you able to provide evidence? So even at work, I was
Mhm.
going to come to this, that I look back when we finished college those days, right?
Yeah.
We used to do this CV and put in a brown envelope. I'm sure you did the same
Oh
thing.
yeah, okay.
Eh?
And give
Look
them
on
to
it,
your
look
paros and all your relas.
exactly, and they never even responded. Anyway, and then you put there that your name. You even put that where you come from, your
Date of
age,
birth, your
whether you're married,
religion.
your
Oh.
religion. Um, if you think about it nowadays, I tell people that now that we're in the spirit of being much more clear about the mindset, about what your passion, about what you love to do, that's what people want to see first.
Mm.
That if you come into my office and we begin chatting, I can see the energy that you have. I can see the radiance that you portray. I can see the level of energy and how infectious it is. And I feel like there's a connection,
I like how you're talking about vibes. I
Yeah.
think that's what our friend would call them. Yeah? It's
Yes.
vibes. They have good
Yeah.
vibes.
And I think that's what people want to see, because I
Mm.
know you will obviously come with your credentials and your academic papers, but is it the right energy?
Mhm.
Is it the right mindset?
Mhm.
Are those the things now that you can be able to show in your resume that, by the way, I'm passionate, like you're saying, I love life.
Yeah.
I love games, I love going out, I love driving, I love adventure, I love exploring. That is the kind of thing that speaks a lot more about yourself than just saying, oh yes, as you
I was
said,
number one in the class. I had a
eh,
GP of.
yes, I went to school, I ticked the box. That can't get you to where you want to be.
True.
Mm.
So I like that. So at least we're telling people now. So think about it. So it's not just you getting the accreditations. It's you going out there trying new things. Are you going to try and become? If you've always lacked martial arts, are you pursuing that? Are you
Mm.
swimming? Are you
Mm.
growing? Because like what you're indirectly telling us, just by explaining the things you like, is you're showing us the holistic figure. There's not just the academic guy.
Mm.
There's this guy who likes outdoors,
Mm.
who likes this. And that's so for you when you're doing interviews, what are the things you look out for? Maybe this can give them another perspective into that.
So, and I guess a big giveaway here is that we're talking about EQ, right?
Yeah.
The software that somebody gets to run with. Usually, when I'm doing interviews nowadays, I tend to ask somebody, truthfully, tell me the biggest mistakes you've made and what did you learn? And it's interesting because that's one thing about self-reflection.
Mhm.
You're not afraid to say, you know what, I really blundered on this one. I think I dropped the ball. I remember one candidate, I think last week, and she had been forwarded by the manager. And then when I asked her, she said, you know what, my greatest regret is I should never have skipped classes. I think it was just peer influence in campus. But for somebody to be honest, to be able to say that,
They've taken time.
they've taken time.
Mm.
So I think that's extremely important. How have you handled obstacles that you faced,
Mm.
right? What did you do? Did you innovate? Were you forced to innovate? Give me an example of something that you really innovated. How do you feel that contributed to you being able to overcome that challenge? Because then it sort of begins to pack the real application of AQ. Are you afraid when other people besides you seem to be growing up, seem to be getting accreditation, seem to be getting promotions. What does that mean for you, right? Because we talk about those kind of things. People who have resentment don't have the right mindset. And those who don't have the right mindset, aka a fixed mindset, are so afraid that they don't want other people to grow when they've not grown themselves.
Isn't that sometimes also called competitiveness, and it comes in different forms?
I don't think that's competitiveness, right?
It's
Because
fixed.
when it's fixed.
Mm,
If you're challenged,
mm.
if you are, for lack of a better word, um, you feel bitter because somebody else is growing, then you don't have the right mindset,
True.
right?
Yeah.
There could be a reason why you're not where you need to be. So I think those are things that are important that you'd also want to put into perspective. And of course, when you talk about what you said earlier, problem solving, analytical skills, that's very important. Decision making, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you make your decisions?
Mm.
How do emotions affect your decisions? How do you determine, for example, what sort of evidence do you use to make your decisions? How do you then come up, how do you decide this is the path I want to take? Do you multi-track? Yeah, so
It's a good question.
mm,
So if you're in a sticky situation, how do you sort it out?
exactly.
So we
Eh,
like that. So we're looking at you exploring yourself, seeing yourself more holistically, so that we can explore various things. Now, can we also look at how this is a cutthroat season right now? So, as a professional who's trying to grow, how do we integrate and balance everything? Keeping everything in check right now is a challenge. Here you are, you want to go back to school, you have pressure at work, your family is growing. How do you strike that balance so that it's not that your family suffers or something? Because I'm sure that's something you've also had to go through.
yeah, I think it's a very big challenge, and we used to call it work-life balance, but I think now we say life balance because
Mhm.
your family and your work are one, right? It should never be that one should suffer at the extent of the other. The truth is, of course, you need the work because that's what's putting bread on the table, and you need to be able to deliver. But at the same time, I think you need to be very selfish in terms of ring fencing those things that are very important for your family. The challenge I have is not people that are workaholics, for example,
Okay.
right? It's the people that end up sacrificing, but the other free time that they have, they're not even there for their family. And that then becomes a problem. You can say that work is eating so much of my time because of what I need to do. And yes, you want to be able to reduce so that you find time to be able to do the most important things. But you can't say on one hand I have work and then my other free time I can only use it for golf or for something else,
Mm.
right? And it should never be at the expense of most critical thing, which is your family time, which is building relationships, spending time with your kids. So for me, I think that's real reality. People who don't spend time, as I said, are normally heading towards a cliff.
Which cliff is this one?
That cliff of finding that you don't have balance. And you know what? That some of the questions you ask yourself, you don't have time for the most important things. You don't even have time to do your own grooming. You don't have time to go for your walk. You don't have time to be able to go and do your therapy. The people who do hydrotherapy, they swim, they go for massage. You find that you're at home, but you're plugged on and thinking about work. You don't have time for your kids' birthdays. You don't have time to be able to.
The school events.
Yes, the school events. I mean, so all those are, I
So how do
think,
we
are red
balance that with
flags.
school? Because I'm saying like now when people are trying to move on, you're working on a PhD. That's not easy. And you've done a master's. How did you balance all? Because that takes a lot. How do you now draw in? Because this is now an extra baggage. You have the school, you have school which you must do, you have a restricted time within which to do it. You still have your work pressure and you still have your family obligations. What are some of the things that you have learned
Actually,
through that?
when you put it that way, it sounds like it's really quite a big
I'm just
mountain to
thinking because
bear.
it's 24 hours. Ideally, you slept 8. So you have Kedo 16.
That's ideal. But we
I
wouldn't.
said ideally because even
Yes,
me, 8 is a rumor.
yeah. I doubt whether we get to sleep. I
Yeah.
think it's important to be intentional. One of the things I was telling a group we were with at the beginning of this year when it comes to goal setting is just ring fence it, right? You have your vision board, you've done it for the year. You need to be very clear. This year, my family dinner is going to be on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. It's blocked.
Okay.
Regardless of how my calendar is, this is what's going to be. Sunday is our church time. We go and do breakfast together. We do lunch together with the family. That's already fixed, cast on stone.
Mhm.
So those moments in your calendar that are completely blocked for the most important things should remain so.
Even when I have an urgent paper or have a thing I need to submit and pressure has
which would be
overcome.
rare, but it doesn't change, right?
Okay.
That would
I like
would
that. So
be
schedule it
yes,
and just block it.
yes, yeah,
So that has worked
and
for you.
yeah, that does. And for me, the constant reminder is always what again, I'd like to quote Dr. Steve Covey: things which matter the most must never be at the mercy of things which matter the least.
So you have to get your priorities in order
Yes,
to know what matters the most.
yes,
So it's not interfered by something that matters
yes,
the least.
yes.
The car needing to go to the garage
Because those
will
things
not
that matter the
overtake the
least can
swimming
be
gala.
quite cunning. Yes,
They can sneak in.
They can exactly. That's a word. Yes.
They can come packaged.
Yes.
Like the car
Yeah.
breaking down. You have swimming gala today for the kids.
Even friends, right? I mean, even people calling you for like, hey, we need to catch up, or we have this road trip, or and it's very easy to imagine that let me just go for this one, and then I'll do their things later, only for you to realize that that later might not actually
Be
get to
there.
come. Yeah, so I think that's important when things that matter the least take precedence over things that matter the most. As you said, that time is gone. Time is not a renewable resource. It's not like you can go back and
You
wind
can't rewind
the
it.
clock.
Right.
Yeah, you can't. So I've seen people that have really missed out completely on their kids growing up. They say the ages between 6, 7, 8 to 14. Some of the most important ones. It's
They
gone.
fly.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Before you realize that your kid is 16.
And you're like, where? You were 4 the other day.
Yeah.
What's happening?
And unfortunately, you can't be able to go back.
I
Yeah.
think I call this adulting because I just realized the other day I had to turn down so many things and I was like, hey, finally I'm a grown up. I'm saying no to all the things I like to do. I've grown up.
What normally you would
Because
jump.
because I was like, what is more important? So they were least important, but they were the most tempting. Oh, classmates reunions, gee, what? But you're thinking, if I do this, this will happen. And I was like, hey, adulting is not easy.
Mm, mm. And that's scary. When you think about it also, even at work, when we tell people that you need to prioritize, a lot of people tend to work on the edge of the cliff. We normally call it the crisis, that crisis room. In a crisis room, things are normally on your head. It's like they're putting a gun. You either do it, you
Do or
don't,
die.
things will fall apart.
Mm.
So you're always on deadlines, you're always on urgent things, you're always on, they call them critical things. And your list is nothing but emergencies. I
Yeah.
always say, my God, unless you're an emergency doctor, I don't see why you should. It's always a reminder that if everything ends up being on the emergency list,
Something's
it is
missing.
because it's something that you sacrificed earlier. This is like those indicators that you're paying a high price of a mistake that you probably hadn't taken into account.
You didn't factor in everything.
Mm.
And that leads us to something important. Let's look at, let's talk about, because you said, first of all, you're a mentor. So let's look at the role of mentorship and also networking in growth, because you need that. We all to get that feedback, to get that exposure, to get your mind thinking beyond, because if you're going to be a CEO and all you do is hang out in the office, who will see you?
And always on the computer.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because of all the things I value the most about mentorship is the value of networking. And I mean, people have said that you're only as big as how big your network is.
Right.
And to go back to our, overarching topic about career growth and progression, there's a very strong correlation between that and being able to network. It's being able to know the people that I can stand on their shoulder and get to the next level. A lot of our generation and the younger generation now don't pay as much keen attention on the power of the networks.
I think we also don't understand how to, maybe. We're not too sure how to do this networking thing.
It's true. I mean, and maybe that's also where the mentor comes in, right?
Right.
I think it's important to sort of endear yourself to people that can, in that pathway, they can get you to rub shoulders with those people that really matter the most. And I always like to remind people that it doesn't mean that a mentor is a person who you have to see physically every other time.
Oh,
And
okay.
nowadays we have technology, right? So
Right.
you can have that being virtual. You can also have actual people that you follow as mentors because of what they do, and the people who are sometimes very busy. You don't get to like Robin Sharma. I mean, I've never
yeah,
met.
at least
Yes.
you were in the same space.
Yeah,
You're
that's
ahead. You're ahead.
for
You're ahead.
for
Uko
a
mbele.
change. But
But
definitely
you
in
talked about
my
endear. How do
yes,
we endear ourselves?
you have to be intentional.
And also such a day look spooky.
You have
Or
to be
like you're trying a bit
intentional.
too hard.
You have to be intentional. Yes, you can't stop. For
You
sure.
know, you don't people thinking, we're hacking something not.
Yeah. And I think when you know that this is what I want, this is what my why is, and this is what my purpose, one of the things about just being intentional is aligning yourself. Nowadays there are a lot of opportunities where that sort of networking events do occur.
Okay.
If you can, why don't you join that, right?
Mhm.
If you can, you can join a book club where one of your mentors is, for example. You can join a community, whether it's Rotarian, where your mentor is. I guess we usually say that there are many ways in which you can still skin the cat and find yourself being able to grow. The scared thing is that, and I know we won't talk about death again. This is my last one.
No, it's important.
But
It's a cycle of life.
but you don't want to be at your end stage and realize that, by the way, I never actually expanded my network.
Okay, we
I
don't
never
want you
expanded.
regretting.
Yeah, you don't want to say, I wish I could have met more people that could have influenced me positively to grow and become better. Because that's something you can do now, then do it.
So how
Right?
do we do it? Because you see, it takes a bit of thinking, and also sometimes it's you overcoming who you are. Maybe you're a bit of an introvert. You're not a very social person,
Which we've also covered, because you said when you self-reflect and you know the areas you need to improve and then start on that, right? That's
right?
what sharpening is about.
Yeah.
You know that I need to improve on my social interaction. I need to improve on my energy that I tend to radiate. There are people who have what we call level one energy. They are drawn to themselves. So when they come into a room like this, they want to sit at the back seat completely. They want to be incognito. They don't even want to talk loudly. So when they stand up, it's like they are whispering, and you have to tell them, hey, can you increase your voice, or can I give you a microphone? Do you need a microphone? I always say, if you ever asked somebody that, hey, I can't hear you, can you talk loudly? It tells you the level of energy that they are in,
Okay.
right? And that's one of the things that when you know, you can do something about it. And so it's that intentionality. And for me, it's all linked. Your why, beginning with the end in mind, your vision statement, your purpose, all those things speak to the same.
And I think you're also saying that if you're willing and you're intentional, opportunities will suddenly you will start seeing them.
I think the word is seeing them.
You will start because they were there. It's just you who
Yeah.
hadn't seen
I
them.
think the word is seeing them. Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned a book club, and I hear you do have a book club. Maybe you can
I
touch
do.
on that as we wind up.
I do. One of the things is actually when I started mentorship, I had a group of 3 people that told me, and I mean, they noticed I love reading. For me, I think reading is one of the things I'm so proud to have had as a culture. And they really wanted to be able to join in that journey and just, can we read together? Let's know the book that you're reading. We'd like to get the same book and we'd like to read. And if we can, we'll probably get to share our feedback. So we started, I think it was just like 3 people.
Mhm.
And that book I remember was by Carlson. It was called
The
Don't
small
Sweat the
stuff.
Small Stuff.
Yes.
Such a powerful book. It was an omnibus, three books in one.
Hmm.
And I think it's now going to be 9 years, and we really have
You've had a book club for 9 years.
9 years.
So you guys have read a lot of books.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes. And I think we now have a community. Some people, of course, are back in the back seat, they're back.
It's life. The
Yeah,
80-20.
they're always.
Yeah.
But I want to believe that there are people who have really been changed by the books that we focus on, which is on leadership, it's on personal development. There are things that impact your day-to-day life. We're doing a book currently by a clinical psychologist known as Emmy Moore, the 13 things that mentally strong people don't do. It's very practical,
Sounds interesting.
and she talks from a perspective where she lost the husband, lost the mother-in-law. In fact, she had like 3 tragedies following each other. And she really had to navigate a very dark time. So when you talk about things that we also go through as individuals, I think it helps. So we don't just read to learn, to grow, but also to be able to share an experience that other people have gone through.
So this conversation can go on and on and on. So definitely, if people would like to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
That's a good point. I must say I'm not so strong on social media. However, I'm available on LinkedIn.
Okay.
As Newton CLA. I think I'm easily anybody can be able to DM me. You can send a message. I'm sure there'll be a link on this podcast.
Definitely, we will put a link
Yes.
on the podcast so that you know how to get hold of him.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is amazing. So how do we wind up? As we wind up, what are we telling people about always having the end in mind in the things you're doing?
I think I'd like to put it in a perspective of what one of my mentors told me. You have 2 choices in life.
Okay.
Either you're going to come to the end of your life feeling like you are well intact, preserved, and you enter into that particular box in a very good shape, or you can be so worn out and so beaten, but it's simply because you had the ride of your life.
Oh wow.
And I think that is extremely important.
Mm.
You want to look back and say, What a ride.
I was great.
What a ride.
Yeah.
And I've seen people that actually look, you know what? I've done what I could, I've learned what I could have learned. I don't have any regrets. I enjoyed every single moment. And you can do that now. That's the beauty about the mindset that you
You can
adopt.
start today.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the choice.
Choice is yours.
Choice is yours.
I think, thank you so much. Valuable lessons, valuable insights. And that's, of course, you can only get here on EI Simplified. And our guest was Newton Ciele. Looking forward to having you on the next podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.